My name is Elaine Ginn, and I am the paradigm shifter. And I am here to shift some paradigms for you. Now, paradigm, if you're not familiar with that word, and there are a couple people in this room I think might not have heard that word, it is a way of doing something, of thinking about something. Like we have a paradigm about how you get up in the morning. You don't get up and get all dressed and then take a shower. There's an idea about the way it happens. You get up and there are certain things that you do. You don't put your shoes on before your socks and all of that. We have an idea about the way things should be. And we have those paradigms to help us get through life, because if every morning we had to stop and think, okay, now what do I have to do? And it makes life go much more smoothly. But sometimes we develop paradigms that are convenient, but they're wrong. And so we live our lives with these paradigms thinking they're going to get us through, and sometimes they fail us. So today we're going to shift a paradigm. So this morning we're talking about energy. Absolutely everything is energy. And we're going to look at energy in a little bit different way today than we're accustomed to looking at energy. I mean, we think of energy as air conditioning, as lights, as being able to exercise, all of those things. But our paradigm is going to be different today. Now, how you perceive the world is based on your senses, your vision, your hearing, and your touch and everything. You know, as a kid, you know how kids have to touch everything and put everything in their mouths. They're learning about how the world is. And we have other things that we develop that are not necessarily from our senses, but they're from what we learn from our parents, our teachers, our siblings, our peers. All of them contribute to the way we see things and the experiences we have. Someone who has been fired from a job feels differently about bosses probably than someone who hasn't been fired. Everything that happens is an energetic event, and it impacts how you view the world and how you live in the world. Now, you're sitting down here. I hope you're feeling comfortable. I hope you feel safe, have a sense of security about all is right with the world. Do you feel like you are moving really fast while you're sitting in your chair? No. We don't usually have that sensation. Now, in the car, if you're driving in the car, you have the sensation that you're moving. And if you're moving at 70 miles an hour and then the speed limit goes down to 35 miles an hour, is that sensation of movement different? Okay, well, I want to change a paradigm about that. And I brought my handy-dandy globe here. Now, we are right about there on the globe. But while we're sitting here in Jacksonville, Florida, the world is spinning around on its axis at about 1,000 miles an hour. So we're really going, and we don't even think it. We don't feel that. And the graphics I'm going to show you are way out of proportion. I'll tell you more about that later, because it is impossible to put the proportion on the graphic. So while the world is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, and this is a time-lapse photograph from El Capitan, and those little dashes that are going circularly are a representation of the stars, because as the world is spinning, that's what happens. The light of the stars extend. They don't extend. They are in the, well, they're not really in the same place, but relative to us, they're in the same place, and we're spinning around them. And I had to include this next picture because it was just so beautiful. It's like a double spinning thing. Isn't that gorgeous? They call those star trails. So while the Earth is spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, it's also moving around the sun. So it's spinning, and it's going around the sun at 67,000 miles an hour. And as if that weren't enough, we got our solar system here. We're just one of the planets in the solar system that are orbiting around our sun. But our entire solar system is spinning around the galaxy. Not just the world, but the whole solar system. All together, it's all spinning around the center of the Milky Way galaxy. Whew. Is that enough? That's at 670,000 miles an hour. So we're going 1,000 miles an hour this way, 67,000 miles an hour around the sun, and the whole shebang is moving at 670,000 miles around the galaxy. And as if that weren't enough, and there's the Milky Way galaxy. Isn't that cool? That's from an observatory in New Zealand. The entire Milky Way galaxy is hurtling through space towards Andromeda at 300,000 miles an hour. Doesn't it make you tired just sitting there? Made me tired just walking 10 feet over and over again. So, but there's all that movement going on, and yet we don't perceive that. It's like, it's just another day in paradise. I'm just sitting here, and yet all of that activity is going on. Okay, and this is a picture of a couple of galaxies that are moving toward each other. They both kind of look like shrimp, don't they? Or the Pisces sun. Anyway, the point of this is that even though the galaxies collide, the distance between the stars is so huge. It doesn't look like it to us, but it's like bigger than the distance between the Earth and the sun. And even though the galaxies interface with each other, there's rarely a collision between stars because there's just so darn much space up there. So this galaxy kind of flies through that galaxy, and neither one gets harmed, at least very much. So there's all of that goes on, and this isn't a new idea by any means. Well, maybe you hadn't heard about the Milky Way hurtling towards Andromeda or something, but you knew that the Earth spun on its axis, and you knew that we orbited around the sun. But we don't think of it in terms of really what it is. What makes all that happen, and what causes it? What's going on there? And it's a lot of energy. It's a lot. How much energy does it take to spin? It took me a lot of energy just to do that. And to take a huge planet, and the Earth isn't really a huge planet, but to keep it where it is, going where it should be, that takes a lot of energy, especially to keep it on track. So if we're missing out on all that, what else are we missing? What are we not perceiving? Because how you perceive things totally controls your life. I had a friend who had an argument with her husband once. I know that's shocking. You probably never heard of any married couple who quarrel. But they had this quarrel. She had forgotten her keys or something, and he brought her the keys, but I can't even remember the details of it. But it was a simple thing. And she thought that he was being insensitive because he just brought her the keys and he didn't bring her the car or something like that. I mean, it was just something silly. And yet, that was a huge issue for them. A huge issue. Whereas someone else might have said, wow, that was really nice of him to bring the car or to bring the keys or whatever it was that he did do. So, but instead of looking at that, she looked at whatever it was she thought he should have done but didn't. And that created an incredible rift in their relationship. And actually, they didn't get divorced over that, but they soon thereafter got divorced. And so, of course, probably that issue had nothing to do with it. There was obviously some undercurrent there that was more important. But what else are we missing in life? Well, we've got the issue of what the world is made of. We've talked about the world out there. But the world inside is very much like the solar system and the universe. We are each, everything, the table, the globe, the salt, the pepper, the artificial sweetener, and the sugar are all made out of atoms. And that's not news to you either. But I was not taught the whole deal about the atom when I was in college, and I've got a master's degree, and nobody ever told me this, that in an atom, as it shows up here, you've got electrons that are spinning in their own orbits. And those lines represent, like the orbit of the Earth around the Sun, or any of those other orbits that are going out there in space. We send up a lot of satellites that are in orbits around the Earth, just a circling thing. These electrons are spinning around the nucleus. And the nucleus, which I'm representing here by this red circle, see the green dot and the purple dot? The green dot stands for neutrons, and the purple dot stands for protons. Those are all inside the nucleus of an atom. And you've probably seen the periodic chart of chemicals, where helium, has one electron, and the weight of an element depends on how many electrons are spinning and how many protons and neutrons are in the nucleus. Now, protons have a positive charge, electrons have a negative charge, neutrons don't have a charge, but together, the positive and negative electrical charges create an electromagnetic field. So we have, this is really much tinier, and we'll get to that in just a moment. We think of atoms as being really, really, really tiny solid objects. That's the stuff that we're made of. But, and when I mentioned that these things are way out of proportion, I'm going to show you a little bit more about that. But right now we're going to talk about the solidness. When you see a fan just sitting there, you can see the blades of the fan. When the fan starts going, you don't see the three blades anymore. That's actually spinning. I turned the fan on, and then I turned it off, and as it slows down, you can even hear it. Do you feel cooler already? Still. But you don't see the individual blades. And this is just a dinky little fan. But as it slows down, and you can see they'll stop, and you can see them again. Well, those electrons are spinning with so much force that they create this electromagnetic field. And one atom of boron is attracted to, and you know how a magnet will attract iron. Well, one of these atoms of boron will attract another atom of boron, will attract another, and they stick together, and they're all spinning so fast. It looks like there's something there. But there's really nothing there. And to give you an idea about that, we'll go back to the stadium. These things are so tiny, they are beyond our human comprehension, just the way the distance between the stars. It's hard for us to imagine 93 million miles compared to 97 million miles or, 300 million miles. It's all big. Anyway, if you have no comprehension of that, we have no comprehension of the space or size of the elements. We call this quantum physics. It's about itsy-bitsy pieces. And we've got even itsy-bitsier pieces that I'm not going to get into right now. But if we thought of one of these huge sports stadiums as one atom, then I can describe it to you in terms that you might be able to comprehend. An electron in an atom that's that big is going to be about the size of a speck of dust that you see floating in the sunlight. That's how much stuff there is. And then the nucleus would be about the size of a pinhead. So, if you're in the stadium, you could dance around there forever, just fly around and walk up and down the stairs and, sit in every seat and never touch an electron. And never touch the nucleus. And this would be, it's the size of the space dome above ground and below ground. That's a lot of space. And yet the amount of actual stuff, we think of, now that's solid. But if you think about how much actual matter there is, there's practically nothing. Practically nothing. It is 99.99999999999999999% empty space. That's an atom. The heaviest atom is a heavy metal, and they keep monkeying with trying to make, new metals by adding electrons or something. But I think that right now the heaviest one has about 108 electrons. So if you put 108 specks of dust and a pinhead, they would easily fit into less than a 16th of a teaspoon. There's just practically nothing there. What makes it something is the energy. It's all energy. And you are like that. You are practically empty space. It seems like, got a few pounds here I don't want, a few pounds here I don't want. And yet there's practically nothing there. You are your own energy field. So when we're talking about this, even though we think of atoms as little things, they're not. The difference between what happens in outer space and what happens in the atoms at the quantum level is that we cannot predict, like we know exactly, have you seen these stories where they tell you exactly where the sun was and where all the stars were the night that Christ was supposedly born? There are shows where they tell you all of that stuff. Well, in, 3 AD, which is when they think, or 4, they think he was really born. This is when, this star was here and that star was here, trying to figure out where the star was that, led the kings from the east. But with quantum physics, I don't know how they do this, but this is, I'm not a quantum physicist, just play one at church. But in the orbits, I think they must get an electron, I'm sure they use an electron microscope, and they look at it and they videotape it, because they can't see with their eyes how fast those things are going. Our eyes just won't comprehend that speed. And so I think they videotape it and slow it way down. And they think that the electron will be at this place or that place or another place on the orbit. And these are not multiple electrons in one orbit. This is one electron in orbit around one place. And so they look for it, and they look for it, and they look for it, and they find it in a place they didn't expect it to be. And it changes, and there's this gets very complicated. I'm going to try not to make it any more complicated, because it's a lot. But they think that your perception of the object determines where that electron is at the moment. Because everything seems so solid. Seems so solid. Okay, and this, I don't know, can you see about the heart over on the right? Looks kind of fuzzy. It's kind of like white noise. Well, we think of our heart as, it's not a solid object, but there's a lot of muscle in there with a little space for blood. But in truth, your heart and your muscles and your eyes and everything else about you is kind of like, if you could see each other energetically, it would look like white noise, just look like fuzzy stuff, because it's just energy. There's no stuff there. Speaking about your body and your health, let's say this is the normal orbit for this electron. And actually, I have it spinning clockwise up there. And it's got the little nucleus there. And these are way, way out of proportion, remember? But I don't have a football stadium to make the pictures. So imagine this being, with a lot more space between. But if you're normal and healthy and everything's going fine, and this is a theory. This has not been proven yet, but it makes sense to me. And you can read more about it and see what other people think as well. But you've probably heard about energy medicine. There's a lot more about energy medicine now. Acupuncture works on the energy lines in your body, and Reiki, and there are a lot of other types of, there's a healing touch is another type of energy medicine. You don't ever touch a person's body, you just massage the energy field around them. So there's a lot of credence that this works. But one of the theories is that when you get sick, this orbit inside this inside this atom, this electron in the part of your body that's ailing, is going to shrink inward, and you'll have a smaller orbit and less energy because the electron doesn't have enough energy to be its full normal self, and it just kind of shrinks away in its orbit, and then you've got lots of little electrons that are not functioning at their top level. So then, if you've got all those atoms that aren't working, and then the ones around it aren't working, and so that explains to an extent why energy medicine works. Because if you could boost the energy level of the electrons, then they can bounce back into their normal cycle and restore health. That may not be applicable to everything, but that's certainly a big part of it. You are a highly electrical organism. You have enough electrical activity in your body, enough energy in your body right now to meet the needs of a major city for a couple of weeks. We could just hook you up to the grid and use your energy. You have so much. That's why they do electroencephalograms. If you have something wrong with your brain, they're checking the electrical activity in your brain. They do electrocardiograms, or EKGs or ECGs, where they measure the electrical activity in your heart. And your heart is the most electrical part of your body. It is a muscle, but it goes 24/7. You may go to sleep at night, but thank goodness, your heart keeps working. And all of your muscles, they do electromyograms on your muscles and your nerves to check how things are working. Every thought you think is an electrical event and an energetic event. Every time you move a muscle, it's an electromagnetic event. It's an energetic event. Every nerve impulse, everything that you do is energy. Your emotions, whoa, these are powerful, energetic puppies. And they are there to guide you. Your emotions are just full of energy. Have you ever walked into a room where people were talking? Where they weren't, you didn't hear anything, but you could just kind of feel like an argument had taken place? Or you could kind of feel like they were having a party just before you even saw anyone. There's just energy in the room that represents what's going on with human beings. It's not just you that affects. Your anger doesn't just screw up, doesn't make you have a tummy ache and a headache and all of that. It affects everyone in your environment. Everyone in your environment. So and your love does too. I've seen people just going, whining and complaining and everything. Somebody walks into the room and they just bring an energy with them that resolves it all. They feel, oh, okay, that doesn't matter. Let's talk about something else. It's just amazing. So whether it's what we consider negative or positive, it has an effect. Every emotion that you have, and it impacts other people. It oozes out from you. And I don't know if you've heard about aura photography or Kirlian photography, but there is this energy field that we can actually measure and photograph. It's phenomenal. And it is directly and instantly impacted by your emotions and your thoughts. Just like that. And lucky us, We can change that by deciding not to be in whatever mood we're in, or deciding to enhance whatever mood we're in. We can bump that up or kick it out by making a decision about it. And see, most people will say, I've heard this so many times, well, it's just the way I am. Do you like being that way? They probably do, because that's what they're used to. But if they wanted to be happy, you heard that new Pharrell Williams song? Happy, I'm just happy. Yeah, cool. You can decide that. In fact, if you're in a bad mood and you want to be happy, put his song on and do a little dance. Go to YouTube. If you don't have it, dial up YouTube and put in Be Happy or I'm Happy or Happy. I think it's just Happy. Isn't that the title of it? It's just Happy. So you do that and you'll find about 400 videos of his song. Pick one. He has Happy for 24 hours a day. That's 24 different videos that are an hour long each. So if you really need a boost, you can keep it going for 24 hours, or you can play the same one over and over again. Okay, your physical activities. Now, we know about that, about all the energy, professional athletes. We're hearing about this all the time, all the energy that we do. And it is electrons at the right spinning level, at the right orbit, because you're creating energy as you exercise. And that gets through every cell of the body and gives you a boost. Now, there's, a limit. If you run 24 hours a day, then eventually you're going to run out of energy. You have to take a break. Everything that you do is electromagnetic energy. It's moving. You are a happening thing. It is all going on right inside you, right now, every moment of your life, 24 hours a day, because even if you are asleep, your heart's still going, your brain is still going, it's making all those dreams. You're still going on. Now, energy, you are an energy field, and you affect other energy fields. I mentioned emotions and other people, but if you took a bucket of water, if I take a bucket of water here, and I put my hand in it, the energy field that is my hand easily interrupts the energy field that is the water. I take my hand out, and it heals up. When I was at the university, I taught a course called Understanding Death and Dying. And I read a lot about near-death experiences. And a lot of people who have near-death experiences say that while they were in surgery and they were trying to resuscitate them, that they would go to their consciousness, their essence, their energy field, if you will. They didn't say that part. But they said, yeah, I went to the waiting room where you were all sitting, and I saw our neighbor Joe was there. I didn't know he was going to come. How did he show up? And people were looking at him like, well, he left when we found out that you were dead. We just talked a couple of minutes, and he decided to go. Well, they went through the wall or the ceiling or the floor or whatever of the room that they were in, their consciousness, their energy field, and viewed what was going on. And there are so many stories like that that are documented, that people somehow had the consciousness in the area where other people were. And some of them said, there was one where a little boy almost died, and he said, I looked on the ground outside my room, and there was a tennis shoe that somebody lost on the ground. And they went out, because he was in the bed the whole time. He didn't go look out the window, but he saw the shoe on the ground while he was dead, because his energy field perceived that. So your energy field affects other energy fields, even if it doesn't look like it to our eyes. And we don't see all this going on. When someone who perhaps is in their energetic body or their essence, whatever you want to call it, and they go through a wall, they interrupt the energy field that is the wall, and it heals itself back just like the water did, because it's a much lighter energy field than the one that's my body. If I try it in my body, I'm going to have some damage. But the energy field that is your essence is much lighter and doesn't cause the damage. It's like going through the water. Now, I have a lot of pictures here of emotions. Children, bless their hearts, bring us a lot of joy when they're happy. And we see that, every day. They just make you giggle, which raises your energy level. That's why a lot of people like to be around children. A lot of people don't like to be around children when they're crying or screaming or something like that. Animals. Whoa! Talk about affecting our energy fields. We get very involved with our animals, and they with us. I remember there was one time when I had an event to grieve for, and I was sitting in a chair in the living room, and my cat, who was ordinarily pretty frisky, she just came up and sat herself in my lap and was there to comfort me. She wasn't whining, she didn't ask for anything, she just wanted to be there. As soon as she saw me sitting there and just sobbing, I wasn't sobbing, but I was crying, And animals are very sensitive to emotions. And we're sensitive to theirs. We should be. We can be. Sometimes we choose to ignore that. How about nature's beauty? This is Mount Rainier. I took it from a train window, but I lived in Seattle for 6 years, and it just made me gasp every time I saw the mountain. It's just magnificent. And the energy that's in that granite, it just oozes out all over the Pacific Northwest. It's amazing. And the ocean does the same thing for me. The ocean, or, beautiful flowers, animals, just so much of it really affects our energy level. So these are all things to think about if you're in a funk. If you don't want to be in a funk, expose yourself to the things that make you feel good. Weather. Boy, what a winter this country has had. Does that affect people's energy level? If you wake up every day and it's gray, or you've got ice on the road, or whatever. We like to call a lot of this stress, but it is often a personal choice about how we react to something. If it snows, and you have an important project to do at work, and you can't get there, or if you try, it would be very dangerous. Do you remember seeing the news after that huge snowstorm in Atlanta, and all of the traffic was backed up for miles, and people had to sit in their cars for 24 hours, some of them? You can sit there and make yourself absolutely sick with stress, or you can say, nothing I can do about this. And there isn't anything you can do about that. You can walk away from your car, but it's, there's so much snow and it's so slick and you don't have food, and, you just okay, let's play games. How many words can I make out of the phrase, happily ever after? Oh, okay, well, there's happy. No, there isn't happy. There's, you just start thinking and keep yourself occupied with other stuff. You can sit there and be miserable, or you can do something else. Oh, a decision that you can make. Now, this guy was pretty sharp. Here it says, imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world. And beyond. Way beyond. When he died, we hadn't really gotten a very big space program going, but wow. Imagination is greater than knowledge. And this young man was famous for this equation. What does this mean? E equals mc squared. Have you heard that? Everybody knows that. I'm telling you, none of this is really new, except for the Milky Way galaxy moving toward Andromeda. That's come up within the last 30 years. It's not new, but a lot of people didn't bother to study their science books after that. So what does E equals mc squared mean?
E equals mass times speed of light squared.
Okay, the C, it's a C for the word constant, but the speed of light is the constant that they use, and they square it. So energy equals mass. Now, we've talked about how much mass there is in the world. Very, very little. Less than a cajillionth of a percent is actual matter. And electrons, boy, they just pop in and out all the time. There is hardly any mass here. But the speed of light, that's pretty fast. And you multiply that times itself, and that's just like super fast. So energy and mass multiplied by this huge number are equivalent in Einstein's view. Energy and mass are the same thing, which is just what we've been talking about. Energy and mass are the same thing. Now these guys had some ideas. They've all changed the world. And you changed the world. You have some ideas, and you changed the world. They changed the world more obviously. But you are just as surely a change agent in this world as any of them. We've got Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, and the Wright brothers. And they were all told that their ideas didn't make any sense and all of that. But they had the conviction that they could make it happen. They put their energy into it. They made, this happen and this happened. How different are our lives now than they were before these things came into the world? And Wright brothers were just laughed at. You can't fly. Well, maybe to the moon, maybe to Mars. Yeah, I think we can fly. And who knows what else we can do? You do. It's all in you. You've got the energy. Your energy field impacts every other energy field that there is. You are so powerful. Way beyond your belief. You do more just with every little thing that you say, every action you take, every look you give somebody. You can you can say a lot with a look. You just impact everyone. When I taught Death and Dying, there was a story about a young man who was thinking of committing suicide, and he left a note in his apartment. He said, I'm going to walk to the Golden Gate Bridge today, and if someone smiles at me, I'll just come back. If no one smiles at me, I'm just going to jump off the bridge. Life just isn't worth it. He jumped off the bridge. What if someone had just smiled at him? What if someone had said, hi, you look sad? How much does that take? There's so much that you do that you don't realize. So everything you do, you think, and you say affects everything around you and beyond. So don't take yourself lightly, don't put yourself down, or anyone else, because we each have something to do here, and we have the capability of doing it. Your energy field, if you never say a word, what you are thinking exudes from you. I mean, you've looked at people who weren't saying anything, and you could tell if they were happy or sad. I mean, doesn't that say a lot about my energy field? I didn't have to say anything. I wasn't even looking at you. But you all knew that I was in funk. I wasn't really. I'm a good actor. But those are things that go out into the world, and if everyone you see is like that, doesn't it make you feel kind of down? You have to guard yourself against that. You have to send them love and energy and say, in your mind, I'm wishing you well, I hope that things work out, whatever's going on. And that impacts them. Just a small word. I found when I'm at the checkout, just reading the person's name and saying, hi, Catherine, they look at you like, whoa, this person bothered to read my name. That uplifts people. It doesn't take a lot. And it doesn't take a lot of negative energy to make an impact either. It's so subtle. We talked about subtle in our class last week. It can be very, very minor, And a subtle word, a subtle look can keep someone from pursuing a dream because they got discouraged because of what you said. You can say something on the elevator, you can say something, in a crowd at a restaurant, and people hear you, and that impacts them. You never know how or who, but it does make an impact. So protect your energy, nourish it. Let go of